Welcome back to Brewbound Frontlines, our weekly live stream series of conversations with brewery owners and representatives on the way they're adjusting their businesses during the COVID-19 outbreak. My name is Justin Kindle, and I am the editor of Brewbound, and I'm joined again by my colleague, Jess Infante. Jess, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Justin, how are you?
I'm as well as one can be in 455 square feet. So today, we're bringing together the founders of three craft breweries with large fan bases that are known for largely selling beer directly to consumers. How are they adjusting their business models? What have they learned? We'll find out. Joining us today are JC and Esther Tatro of Trillium Brewing Company in Canton, Massachusetts. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Hey, all. Thanks for having us.
We've got Colin Jones of WeldWerks Brewing Company in Greeley, Colorado. Thanks for joining us, Colin.
Hey, everybody.
And we've got Matt Monahan of Other Half Brewing in Brooklyn, New York. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So we are so happy to have all of you here taking time out of your busy schedules during this crisis time. I know it's not easy, so we are very grateful that you're here. So let's get to it. I want to establish what your pre-COVID business looked like. So how much beer did you guys produce last year? What was the breakdown in draft sales in your tap room versus can sales to go? And how much of it went to bars and restaurants, if anything? So let's start with JC and Esther.
So we operate out of three physical locations. We would have been planning to open our fourth, our beer garden, right about now. And 95% of our volume goes direct to consumer out of our front door. So it is, it shifted significantly towards on-premise draft with the opening of our restaurant and our Fenway tap room. We've got our tap room in Canton as well, and the beer garden is only draft. And we do direct to consumer retail out of the three primary locations also. So that's about 95% of our total volume, and we set about 5% out draft to local bars and restaurants in Massachusetts.
Right on. Matt, Other Half is well known for drawing long lines to your locations. How big of a hit has this been for you guys?
I think the biggest challenge for us has just been sort of reorganizing to try to maintain enough sales to keep the brewery strong. But yeah, it's still, I would say today we're still doing, 2/3 of our business is still walk up or curbside pickup.
Right on. And Colin, WeldWerks has more beer and off-premise than the other breweries here. How big of a toll did COVID-19 take on WeldWerks, and how much of your production have you been able to shift to the off-premise since then?
Yeah, being located in Greeley, we've known that we've always had to be out in all places of Colorado. Colorado is just a hard market to compete with anyway. So we're about a 60-40 split. So we've always been about 60% wholesale, 40% taproom driven. That's always been the case. We like to be where our consumers are at. And if you think about the big state of Colorado, the Front Range, where Fort Collins to Colorado Springs is located, is about the size of my pinky tip in a chasm of that big. So it's not as big of a state as people think. But we've always, since day one, have had a method of getting out to the consumer and do self-distribute all the way from Fort Collins down to Colorado Springs and everywhere in between. So far, and again, because being located in Greeley, which is a little bit of a smaller town compared to Denver, et cetera, people have always had to kind of make the trek to us in a very thoughtful way. And so far for us, even though we're not able to engage in the taproom business, we are still fulfilling to-go orders to the same level as pre-crisis.
Great. I know this has taken a hit on all of your businesses, so I'm wondering how much have your staffing levels changed from early March to now? And I'll ask Matt to start with.
We had to lay off quite a few people. We've since been able to begin hiring back some. We're going to start doing some mail shipping. We have orders that need to be organized before they go out into delivery trucks. So, we didn't have quite the immense on-premise business that, say, JC and Esther have. And so, it's just sort of been reworking people's job descriptions. And yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at now.
How have you changed the way that you're approaching production, I guess? Are you doing anything like staggering your shifts, rotating teams? How do you look at that?
Yeah, we've definitely changed the way we produce. We try to minimize contacts between sections of the brewery, from production to packaging to people that are fulfilling orders to doing curbside pickup. First and foremost, we're just always want to make sure people are as safe as possible, and that our staff feels cared for in that manner. And so it has been one of the challenges has been maintaining 100% output while still minimizing contact with our employees and the public and employee to employee.
Colin, how has WeldWerks staffing changed in the last month or so, and how are you looking at production as well?
Grateful to say that our staffing has not changed one iota. So actually, we've been able to put into place a couple other benefit packages that we had been working on pre-crisis. We've been able to still continue implementation of those. And so 0 jobs lost, 0 hours lost. It's a little bit of a struggle to try to find the gaps to try to keep people busy. But in the worst instances, if we're not able to find those, we're just going to keep people at their previous levels. And so far, that's working out for us, but we definitely have an eye over the back of our shoulders.
And I'll finish up here on this question with JC and Esther.
Yeah, so it was a pretty significant hit for us being, the Boston area. We have 2 locations that are closed now. Our Fort Point restaurant in peak season seats 500 people, and so we're doing 0 operations out of there. So that was half of our total team count. So Fort Point and Fenway are currently closed. We have been able to bring back a significant amount of our production team now that we are producing more for our delivery and our curbside pickup. So we're operating pretty full steam in production. But it was pretty significant and tough for us.
So this has changed a lot. And I know, like JC and Esther, Boston's potentially hitting its peak right now. Do you have any plans for if an employee unfortunately tests positive for the virus?
Yes, actually, we've been talking about this. JC has a background, a little bit in epidemiology. He's not a doctor, disclaimer there. But we've been tracking this for quite some time. So we've had a number of plans in place. We early on, before the shutdown came into play, we had a couple of team members who were told that their significant other or roommate had potentially been exposed and been asked to quarantine by their employer. And so we quarantined them for 2 weeks as well. We had a couple of people felt sick. We quarantined them. They actually were able to go get tested negative, but we put into place plans very early for quarantine operations. And we put A team, B team staffing plans into place, and we've also separated out our brewery into production zones, our lab zone, our retail zone, our delivery pick and pack zone. So we've done significant separation to be able to minimize that, but we're prepared. Boston's been hit very hard, and with the head count, the team size that we have, we're just expecting that somebody's going to be exposed.
Yeah, true to our home brewer roots, we also brewed up a giant batch of sanitizer, some ISO, and some vegetable glycerin and hydrogen peroxide. So we'll make sure we don't run out of critical cleaning, sanitization supplies. My aunt is going to be making us, the whole team, cloth masks as well. So we're using what we have now, but it's going to be going on for a while. So it's going to be good to have some backups on hand as well.
It's smart. Sounds like you guys are really on top of it. Now, Matt, you guys are really kind of in the thick of things. I know New York City's been the hotspot, and Brooklyn in particular has had quite a lot of cases. What planning have you had to do?
For safety purposes, obviously, gloves, masks. We have a massive stockpile of isopropyl just to keep things as sanitary as possible surface-wise around there. But it's mostly just, spacing out crews. You have your production zones, your packaging, just like JC Nestor said, and in front of house, and you try to, keep those partitions down. You work around the clock, and it's, you do whatever you can. If someone gets sick, obviously it's home for a minimum of 2 weeks. It's still really, really hard to get tested. So you never even really know. But the, protocol is that you go home, and, we've got a significant portion of the administrative side. There's a lot of redundancy there. So we have a few managers that are home and have, basically eyes and ears on site. And so, we're doing what we can to just keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you really can do. Colin, you guys are definitely in a different bit of a situation. Have you had to come up with any plans like this being out in Greeley?
We followed suit to what everybody's already prescribed. We had a 2 degrees of separation policy where anybody in contact in that 2 degrees separation was sent home in a quarantine format on us. They didn't have to use PTO or anything like that. Thankfully, the government kicked in with the stimulus plan that provided another additional 80 hours of accredited pay towards staff. So that made it a very easy thing to incorporate for the long term. But yeah, just long story short, following suit. I think the hard part for us is we're very much an engaged brewery. We're very much a family. We only have 1 location, and that's where all the crew is. And so to as a leader to not be able to go in, or to maybe play it a little bit safe on the forefront to say, I'm just not going to go in and high five people. If I can do 100% of my job at home, then I will do so at home. And so we've suffered more from a lack of engagement, probably more so than anything, but have had rigorous testing, and we've been very, very proactive from the onset to the act of closing our tap room before being mandated to do so.
So
go
ahead, Justin.
I was just going to remind our viewers that they can shoot us a text at 617-336-8560. That's 617-336-8560. If you've got questions for these guys, fire them in. You can also ask them in any of the windows that we have open, such as the YouTube chat or LinkedIn. So feel free to shoot those questions. Back to you there, Jess.
Oh, thanks. So, Colin, it sounds like you guys were really proactive, closing before you had to. What day was that? And what point did it really occur to you that, like, this is serious? So, like, how did your plans change after that?
For me personally, it was probably the, what would that have been? Like March the 12th or something along those lines. For me personally, it's when the NBA said, we're done with our season. That to me was a very, very telling sign. We knew it was serious before then, but when you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry that is built upon people being in attendance and tuning in, that really hit home as to the urgency of it. So I credit the NBA for making that right call and to do it in a proactive way. And I really think that they look very good and again made the right calls to that. But yeah, being I was actually in Tampa for Hunapoo. We had Collab Brews, we had Hunapoo going on, we had all of these events going on, and we came home early. We came home on Friday, but before the show even started. Actually, sorry, Thursday, and just called it. None of the places down there had quite called it just yet. All of that happened last minute, but we made the right call all the way through, and I hate being right when it comes to this kind of shit. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Hunapoo announcement coming through and covering it really quick, and then that was probably our last day in the office together, which was March 13th. But I mean, JC and Esther, what about you guys? I know Boston has been not tracking with New York, I feel like our local governments have been a little bit more proactive. So, and JC, can you tell us about your background in epidemiology? Because that's really interesting.
Wildly overstated. I have
so proud of it.
a background in biology and biochemistry from
Cool.
clinical research, so not close.
He's been tracking it for a very long time.
Yeah.
For you guys, what was your, like, this is real day?
Boy, it's been for me personally, it's been kind of a slow drip watching it evolve. The news kind of slowly, strangely evolving from Wuhan originally. And, I think we've seen signals of potential pandemics pop up over the years, and they've kind of always seemed to not take the logarithmic growth curve that we saw with this one and kind of jump from different places of the world in the way that this has occurred. So I'll be honest, I panic bought rice and beans and some canned goods quite a while ago, put it in the trunk of my car in case we needed to leave town, probably in early February, just so that I don't know, I'm not one of those kinds of folks, but I had that feeling one day and did that. It sounds a little silly, but not now, not at this time. So, Esther and I canceled lots of travel for ourselves. We were supposed to go to the Czech Republic. I was supposed to go to the UK to speak at the SIBA conference.
Zealand.
The New Zealand trip as well. And we kind of canceled it at all. And then shortly after that, we canceled all of our team's travel for various festivals as well. And then sort of the news just kept, the pace just kept picking up more and more every day. We thought, one day the mayor had said, no more than 50 in a restaurant, and less than 24 hours later, Governor Baker said, close your restaurant. So even though we kind of saw this really picking up the momentum, I don't know, it doesn't really hit you until those kinds of things occur. Watching Harvard and MIT and all those places just send all their students home was a real eye-opener for us as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know, Matt, you guys have been in it for a while. So you went from having a business where consumers were coming to you, and now you guys are really getting creative and offering delivery and all sorts of stuff. What was the process like to set that up? And what have you learned so far that we can share with other breweries who might be watching right now?
I have two partners. We have a great back-end team, and it really could take credit for the system that they set up. And we had multiple trucks as a business, and we were doing self-distribution already for draft beer, and so adding in a couple more vehicles and setting up the back end made it possible for us to do deliveries. So we've got 4 or 5 trucks out a day hitting different zip codes, but it was a lot of work. It's not just setting it up, it's then getting graphics in so that people can understand on Instagram or Facebook what you're doing, and it involves the whole business to make that happen, just to get people aware that there are changes that have been made, and that we're not gone. We're still here, and if you want product, we'll bring it to you. But yeah, it was really difficult. I mean, we were just focused even before that on trying to stockpile as much stuff as possible. We were around the second week of March too. It became really real to us. We were worried that shipping channels wouldn't be open. We brought in every bit of hot product that was in storage at the supplier. We ordered extra a couple months worth of grain, cans, like everything, labels, and started dialing back the production schedule in terms of different SKUs, so that, wanted to offer a bit of dependability. But it was a lot, and we're still working on it every day. I don't think any of us are satisfied with the way it goes, and but it's everyday hustle, and it takes every single person at the business to make it work.
Definitely
JC and Esther, jumping in here off of what Matt was saying, you guys have also instituted delivery and pickup here. Talk about what it was like setting that up as well. And do you see this as potentially a permanent change for you guys?
Well, we as Esther said, we've got multiple locations. So we had a number of vehicles, and then we kind of repurposed some of our facilities, vehicles, and trucks and that sort of thing to kind of be able to do home delivery. We had no idea what the demand might look like, or how long it would take an individual to go out and make delivery. So I went out on the first few days myself to try to just capture the data and understand the complexities of it. Does this feel safe for us and our team and for our customers? So we're kind of, using the stale phrase of kind of building the plane as you're kind of taking off. So Now, today we have 5 vehicles on the road making 300 deliveries. So it's a pretty big part of our kind of daily business right now. And we're still selling out in sort of about 30 to 45 minutes on most days. So we're actually looking to add a little more capacity there, which, on the flip side, allows us to call back some of our team members, our hospitality team members, to help out with that. So it's a bit of a positive there. In terms of kind of building changes around production, no more 10-barrel batches. We're making all 100-barrel or 135-barrel batches right now. So really focusing on efficiency and productivity for our team, and maintaining that separation within the different disciplines within the team.
I think in terms of the future, we've always been, Matt talked about this a little bit, but like, we're hospitality first. We built these locations to bring people in. We don't want to be, disconnecting or just sending our beer out. So that was never our intention. So as we start to scale back into like what could be our new normal, we have to be able to, our focus was always on being able to meet our on-premise demand. If customers coming to us, we want to make sure that they've got diversity and they're getting the beer that they want. Reliably.
Yeah.
But I think that as we move forward, we're prepared for this to be a slow transition with limited occupancy. And now that we are actually producing enough for the quantity that we're sending out, delivery and curbside, I think that we'll sustain that for a little while. It's been actually great to be able to meet demand in other areas of the state where people are saying like, well, we delivered to the Cape, I think this past Saturday. This past Saturday?
I don't know.
Every day is the same. But like, we just delivered to the Cape for the first time, and we've been getting requests to like open a beer garden in the Cape or like distribute to the Cape for so long. So we got a lot of positive feedback. Now kind of reaching out to different markets. So.
Will this be a long-term component of our business? After this is over, after we've got a globally available, very effective vaccine, and people are kind of going back to the normal, if that becomes possible, we doubt that we're going to be able to actually execute delivery in this same way. Once there's cars on the road, you can't make 40, 50 stops in an 8-hour day for a delivery driver.
It's true. Getting the Cape is only easy right now.
Yeah.
There's nobody there.
Yeah. It'd be, we'd be able to make 5 or 10 maybe. And it's just like, it doesn't make sense to do it.
I know I see when you guys post every day, the delivery window is now open, get online, place your order, and you sell out of slots in like 8 minutes. It's like watching Springsteen tickets go on sale.
Yeah.
And then you see people like,
one of the things that we put into place was sort of a sign-up list to be able to get notified when delivery is coming to your area before it happens as well, because there's a huge flood of customer service inquiries, phone calls, DMs through social, and emails that we're now having to deal with, hundreds and hundreds a day, which it's difficult to be able to do and meet people's expectations for what they've come to expect from Trillium. So just kind of challenge after challenge that the team is just running. Everybody's like running through a wall to get this done. So it's been very heartening to watch our team really just step up and just blast through the next challenge.
That's great. We're getting a lot of audience questions about the Paycheck protection program. So I know all 3 of you guys, or all 4 of you guys, have applied for all 3 of your breweries. Can you share a little bit about what your experience was like and how much that helps going to be able to provide your business? Matt, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, we did. We were very fortunate to have to successfully apply and get that money. It's been extremely helpful. I mean, we did lay off quite a few people, and to be able to bring back some of them and be incentivized to just, as we're switching gears, there's a whole bunch of different available jobs now that weren't there before. And so being able to confidently pay those salaries and be able to, commit to a plan because you have the labor, just enables you to keep going rather than sort of sit back and let all of this hit you. You can be proactive. So yeah, we were incredibly fortunate to be able to receive that, and it's been incredibly helpful for the business.
Colin, what was your application process like? I know as soon as the window opened, everybody got their apps in really quick, and a lot of people ended up coming away empty-handed. So what did it look like for WeldWerks?
For us, it was, and again, I credit our banking relationship. It's one that we went down the path of re-energizing in 2018 with several deals, and that change in banking and the strength of the banking relationship paid off in spades for us in particular. I'm not going to say that they showed us favoritism. That's not the case. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there's just constant communication. We knew what the requirements were going to be. We were fully kept informed all along the way. And just as soon as the final application came out, our submission was in, and we had all the required paperwork behind it. And we were well prepared, again, thanks to our banking relationship.
That makes a ton of sense. What about the economic impact disaster loans, the EIDLs? We're getting a few questions about that too. I know that fund is also run out. Congress is working on retapping everything, but have any of you guys applied for that? No. Okay. JC and Esther, how about you guys with PPP? That ended up working out?
Yeah, we were able to, similar to Colin, we have a good banking relationship. And so our representative was able to kind of talk us through the process. It was complicated for us with the multiple locations. And so we did apply and we were approved. Again, we have 2 locations that are closed. So we are not quite sure, we haven't been funded yet. So we're not quite sure when we're going to be able to reopen. We're still kind of waiting day to day on guidance from our governor and our mayor as well. We just got an indication, just on news report minutes before we started, that our mayor is suggesting this could be another 4, 5, 6 weeks of what it looks like today in Boston. So we're just kind of waiting to see how we can apply that. Though, like JC said before, we've been able to call back a number of people to at least Canton. We've got people who were working in our tap room before who are now doing delivery, which is great, or doing curbside. And again, we've been able to bring back most of our production team to be able to produce this volume. So it's been really, really helpful.
I'm sure there's an assumption from a lot of people that if you guys wanted to be in grocery or liquor stores in your respective states, and I'm talking to JC and Esther and Matt, that your products would fly off the shelves. And so I guess the question is, have you guys looked at, how are you guys looking at your business models moving forward? Are you sort of rethinking the way that your previous model worked and what you're going to look like in a post-COVID, if there is such a thing, world? And I guess I'll start with Matt.
From the start, and I think even as bad as this whole situation is, and we've always wanted more than anything to control the product and the relationship and the transfer of the product to the consumer as much as possible. It is really easy to drop your stuff off at a store and collect a check and go home, but at the same time, you lose all the interaction with the customer. And even as limited as home delivery is, that's our truck that pulls up with our driver, bringing you our beer that came from our brewery that morning. You sort of lose the magic as soon as you. It's sort of an easier way out to go through the traditional 3-tier model. It's not to say that it doesn't work for a ton of people, but for us, we just set out from the start to do that. And so, we're looking at ways to continue. I mean, the home delivery thing is really nerve-wracking because, once traffic does come back, it's not right now that worries me, and it's not when things hopefully get back to normal that worries me. It's the transition point when they start to bring back sections of the economy and people get back on the road, and all of a sudden you're competing with a million other people on the road for the same space and time and parking. A lot of these people that are able to receive their orders at home during the day won't be there. They'll be back at work. And so, we're looking at, like basically satellite warehousing that puts us, all over the state, hopefully. And that way, we can have more localized distribution crews. These are just some of the ideas we're throwing around, but I think we're looking a couple weeks ahead right now, but we're still thinking about how it's going to be. but we were a community-based business. I mean, everything we did was around gathering people. We're expanding in building big tap rooms and outdoor areas to gather people in place. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, we'll survive and we'll push through on this, but yeah, there's a lot of hard thinking going on at night for sure.
JC and Esther, same question there. How are you guys approaching the business model out in a post-COVID world? What does Trillium's business look like? Is there an off-premise retail component?
I'll echo exactly what Matt just said. We didn't get into this to just make and sell beer. We created Trillium to be hospitality first. We always wanted that interaction with our customer. We wanted to be able to say, even when we were back at Congress Street, like in our original brewery, and just doing growlers to get 64-ounce growlers to go out of our tiny little shop. We couldn't even do tastings or samples. Like, trust me, this beer you've never heard of before, you're going to love it. Buy 64 ounces. I'll see you next week. Like, we knew then that we had to have some type of interaction. We wanted to be able to talk to them about the beer. And just like Matt said, even now, our truck pulling up to a customer's house, and even though it's a masked face dropping off the beer and just kind of like checking an ID through the window, it's still a direct interaction with Trillium, with our team, and that is meaningful, and we're getting that positive feedback. So it's never been our intention to distribute. It's actually coincidental and I guess very convenient actually that we had started to create some processes before this all happened that will be extremely helpful after. So we had literally just implemented takeout service at the restaurant the week before we closed. And that was for food, because for the last year, we've been doing online orders, reservations for special releases. So we already had a process in place to be able to sell coveted beers direct to consumers online and be able to reserve your allocation or your pickup slot. So we were already doing pickup at the brewery for pre-orders. We had already put a system in place to be able to do takeout orders for food. So some of those things I think we'll still see. So even though, again, just like Matt said, we're in these like very dense urban markets, it doesn't make sense for us to just, from a real estate perspective, it doesn't make sense for us to have these super expensive, high profile locations, huge locations in the middle of the city. We're not going to bring people to us. So while it's painful in the short run to kind of carry all of these locations, we do expect that we're in this for the long haul. So even if it is a year out before there is a vaccine, before we're back to full occupancy, before we feel comfortable being crowded again, we'll be able to get through continuing to kind of adapt and transition these different, I guess, kind of processes before we have to go to wholesale.
And ultimately, if we start sending our beer out to retail shops, that means our prior employees would not be needed as well. So by continuing to operate this way for the foreseeable future,
creating jobs,
we can keep our team members employed.
So what does line culture look like once everything goes back to normal? I know you guys are all known for drawing people to your establishments for product releases. What does that look like after this? Colin, why don't we start with you?
We hate line culture. Holy shit, it's horrible. We work really hard. We work really hard to negate line culture, and really not for any reason other than just to try to give everybody a fair shake at it. 60% on any given day of customers to our brewery are from another city outside of Greeley. So we're used to that quite a bit. And so leveraging Eventbrite is something that we've been doing more and more. We're actually opening up a lot of our specialty releases to Tabor, again, just to create an opportunity for people across the nation. We've opened up to proxies, and we were actually doing that prior to the crisis. Again, all just an effort to really provide an opportunity to everybody to have whatever specialty release that we have going on. First and foremost, our intent is always to brew as much as we can of said specialty and not to create scarcity with it, in just to try to get it in most people's hands. But the multiple outlets has paid off. We had those relationships in motion before the crisis, and those relationships like Tabor elsewhere are paying off in spades now. And again, just to help to spread it, but we have not had an inline pickup for a while now.
Really good to hear. Matt, what about you guys? What does your next big new product release look like?
We've been working on for quite some time to be able to make enough product that people don't feel like they need to line up around the block in order to get it. We've always been at 100% capacity, so we've always tried to make as much of something as we can out of the small space that we have there. The line, there hasn't been a ton of line stuff, since this. Being able to schedule order pickups from online orders really helps a lot. We haven't had groups of people up at the brewery ever. People sort of police them. They seem to be policing themselves way better than we could ever tell them. And we do tell them anyway, but it's, we've been shooting for more and more capacity over the years. With what we're building down in DC, that brewery can do between 25 and 30,000 barrels a year if we need it to. And the whole point is so that there's always availability for those that want to come to us and enjoy what we make. So we had sort of been planning on trying to get away from all the lineup stuff anyway.
So speaking of new products and stuff like that, how has your innovation pipeline been going? Are you guys able to even dedicate the time that you want to creativity and innovation these days?
Not as much as we'd like. No, I mean it's definitely at the bottom of the priority list. Not to say that it's not there and that we don't think about it all the time, but we're still trying to figure out if how much innovation is too much. We don't want to put out a new product we put out 3-4 new beers a week. But when you break the costs and down of all of those products, adding in a new label and printing and all this different stuff, you just lose money. And right now it's about trying to make as much money as possible to stay strong. And so, we've tailored back our production schedule and our SKUs to our top 30-40 performers, things that people know really well, that they can depend on. I don't think people in selecting how they spend their money aren't necessarily want to try something brand new every single time. You still have to order a case of beer minimum from us in order to have it delivered. And you still have to get in your car and drive all the way down and buy something curbside that you have never tried yet. And so, we're going to introduce new stuff, but nowhere near the pace that we were doing before. I mean, maybe one a week. But for now, we've got great Citra beers, great Mosaic beers, great Galaxy beers, focused IPAs, things that people have had before that they absolutely love and can depend on. And so we're going to make a lot of that stuff available. That's sort of how we've been focusing.
Really smart. JC, Nestor, how about you guys? What's innovation like at Trillium these days?
Well, I mean, the good news is we had a lot of beers already in process, long-term beers in process when this kind of big chasm opened up and changed everything. So we have a pretty full pipeline of new beers or interesting approaches. So, but just like Matt, we, all of our focus, the lion's share of our focus and attention has gone toward changing our operations, kind of circling the wagons and make sure we don't go out of business, can kind of withstand what's to come. But good news, Matt, I was just texting with Sam about a cool new project. So don't worry, there's some innovation happening behind the scenes.
Out there in Colorado too.
Matt, you mentioned Other Half's DC project, and this is one of the questions that we keep getting from audience members is they want to know what the timeline is and how that's been affected by COVID-19 with the various projects, because you're not alone. WeldWerks has a project in Colorado Springs. Trillium has Canton and the farm. So I'll start with you, Matt. Like, how has the timeline been affected for DC, if at all?
It's definitely been affected. We were planning on having this facility operational sometime in June. That's looking more like July or early August now. And that's merely, it's not good because it's not built. It's going to be the local jurisdictions and whether or not they're willing to come out, especially the Department of Health, and do inspections, which you need to pass in order to get all the rest of the licensing. But we're pretty far along on that. I mean, it's about 80% built. We're finishing up all the grain handling right now and the floors, and the next step is bringing in equipment, the packaging equipment and everything else. But we hope to have it going in July, early August, and we have another a bar, a 3,500 square foot bar on the East River in Williamsburg that's under construction as well, and we're still pushing ahead with that. It has a small R&D brew house there, and we're looking at that sometime around, I would say, August, September. There's a big private park out front of that, and hopefully we'll still be able to catch some of that good weather, and so you'll be able to get stuff to go from there and take it out onto the river, on the park, and enjoy it. So we chose to continue funding that project because we do think it will generate revenue.
JC and Esther, how has this changed the timeline for Canton, and has COVID-19 changed the way that you're approaching the spaces within that location as well as your existing establishments?
I don't think it's changed the way that we're planning the space. One of the things, like when we opened our original Canton brewery, you get this big warehouse space, and to some degree, that's really cool. Like, brewing is an industrial, it's manufacturing. You want to be in these cool kind of rustic spaces, but you also want some level of intimacy when you're gathering. Like, you want it to be warm and welcoming. You don't want to just be in this like big cavernous open warehouse. So when we designed the restaurant, for example, that whole space is 18,000 square feet, but it doesn't feel like that. It's on 3 floors. You've got some intimate little gathering spaces. You've got grouping. So we had already kind of planned to bring that element to our new Canton location. So we kind of call it our forever home. That's how we refer to it with our team. But so the forever home location, it's big enough. It's almost 140,000 square feet, but we are planning to, we are relocating everything we do in Canton to that space now. So everything that you might see in the tap room or at the brewery in Canton, we actually operate out of 3 separate locations. So we have 3 leased spaces that we have to kind of piece together our operation, which we were planning to bring all under one roof. So the good news is that there is enough separation built in already that we have some intimacy from a consumer's perspective, for our customers to be able to have like semi-private groups, to be able to feel a little bit warmer in the tap room, but also to have physical separation for our teams from the production facility, a separate lab, separate office space, a kitchen. So I think we're moving forward with our intended design. I don't think we're planning large communal tables, but that type of environment. I'm already thinking about, like, if we get to open the beer garden this summer, we're certainly not all sitting packed in around a bunch of communal tables. That's going to look different moving forward, but it hasn't changed how the spaces will look from what we were originally planning. It definitely has changed our timeline. So we'll move forward. We own the building that we'll be moving to, so we can get out of our leases, but we'll have to phase our approach to occupying that space, and that will be a slower transition now for us.
Colin, with Colorado Springs, are you rethinking the way that project's going to look when it opens? And also, has the timeline morphed on that?
Not really. We're pretty much beholden by the city of Colorado Springs at this point, with it just from a planning and building permit process. It's been a lot of give and take, that's for sure. But as soon as we can, we're getting back to building. As soon as everybody's ready to start working again, as soon as the city's ready to start planning again, it's full steam ahead for us. Doesn't mean that we're going to open right away, especially if we're still in the turmoil of everything going on. We'll probably hit the pause button in a completed space and just say we'll open when it's appropriate for the community. But this for us is a very different outpost. Back in 2018, we bought our property up in Greeley, which is a fairly large plot with multiple buildings, and so we have plenty of room to grow and do what we need to do at the home base. So this outpost was really just a really good dive into the community of Colorado Springs for just the community of Colorado Springs, not a production facility or anything like that. More of just a here's a beautiful mountain view, have a pint of WeldWerks while you're enjoying it.
Cool. JC and Esther, what do you think is going to happen with Boston Seasonal Beer Gardens? I know you guys have that on the Greenway, and there's been a few others from a few other breweries around town. Is that even something that you're devoting brain power to at this point?
I'm thinking about it because we were preparing to be building it right now to open. It's also such a short season for us that every day counts. So we were planning to open early May this year. That's obviously not happening. So again, waiting for guidance so that way we know how we'll be able to move forward, what the occupancy might look like. We are planning to go ahead with it if we're able to reopen. That's such an important project for us. So as long as we feel it will be safe and responsible, I definitely don't think it's going to be anytime in the next month or so. So hopefully, like Matt said, if we can get kind of a late summer out of it, we may try to do that, but it's really going to depend on what that looks like and what the city and the state allow us to do in terms of operations and occupancy. And
do you have a date in mind? Like if we don't hear by the 4th of July, we're just going to call it this year?
No, it's not, because we aren't kind of planning on it. It is really, it's an easier setup for us. Like we've done this now 3 times before. So our team is really well versed. This year actually was going to be a little bit different because we were actually planning to pilot brew there. So we had some, so we had some fun collaborations that we had planned with the Greenway for continued charity projects, fundraisers, because that is a public space. So we were planning to do some fundraisers with them using, for example, like their Greenway honey with the apiary that they're operating on the Greenway just down the street. So, so we're not exactly sure yet. It's certainly not a heavy scale build that would take several months to set up. We could get half the summer if we can. So we'll just wait and see for now.
Yeah. Great audience question that just came in. How are you all beginning to think about the medium to long term? What are the key assumptions you're making about how the world will change as you think about adapting your businesses over the long run? Matt, why don't we kick that off with you?
I mean, we're moving ahead the way that, we wanted the business to go for a long time. I don't ever want to plan on this world forever. It's just it's just really hard. I mean, we're all really riding the power of our brands right now, because there is really no other way to interact in the way that we're used to. But we're planning on things to get better. I don't know if they'll ever go back to the way they were, but I think just as a principle, we've tried to always remain nimble and be able to adjust on the fly. I think that really helped us. Right now, we wanted to be decisive and make decisions and not sort of just be caught looking around like what happened. And so, I think we're optimists for the most part, and so we're just going to keep pushing ahead the way that we can. We're lucky that the things we've sunk money into have infrastructure that allow us to continue and to make money in this current model, but also allow us to go back to business as usual, or a happy mix or forced mix of the two. But we're going to keep doing what we do, and every day feels a bit less crazy. So once hopefully you just start to see the innovation kick up again a little bit, and as we all get used to this. But we're just going to keep pushing forward.
Makes sense. Colin, what about you guys? How is WeldWerks seeing the medium to long-term future?
From a brew style standpoint, we haven't changed. We're still coming out with different releases every single week. We're leveraging the self-distro model that we invoked 3-4 years ago. 150 accounts all along the Front Range in a competitive market, and that's paying off in spades. Used to not being able to rely on people coming up to Greeley to visit us for our income, and knowing that we got to work hard for every single dime. So in terms of our stylistic beer strategy and release formats and everything like that, it's kind of business as usual. I think the hard part that we're struggling with, just being in a tight family culture within one location, is we can't go out to lunch anymore. We can't have a pint at the bar down the street anymore. We can't connect in those face-to-face ways that we were so used to operating on. And so how can we complement that with video? How do we get the same gist of? How do we get back to normal? So we were actually just talking about this earlier today, in that this is, for all intents and purposes, the new normal for now. And so it's on us to go back to our pre-crisis structures of teamwork, communication, culture, family, and all these other elements, training and development and innovation, and keeping a spotlight on those things to say, hey, we're not the richest company in the world, but now's the time to get back to education. So find your course, find your class, find your method. CBC's got a lot of great online tutorials going on right now, courtesy of the BA and all that good stuff. Take advantage of those opportunities. If we need to give you a paid day off to do so, let's do it. But let's get back to these predefined structures that we held so dear before crisis. Maybe we can't have a pint face to face, but what else can we do that complements what we were doing previously to kind of keep this thing going and keep engaged and keep a pulse on what our customers want and to still execute.
Definitely so important to keep up those engagements with not only your customers, but also your team members. Esther and JC, what about you guys? What are you doing to kind of see into the medium term?
So for us, long term is, for me and JC, this is our lives. This is what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. So for what I do for the business, I am in the 5 to 10 to 20 year long term. So I'm still planning forward. I certainly expect that we are going to be having weddings on our farm someday, and we're going to be able to do festivals and events someday. So when I look ahead to the long term, that's 10, 20 years down the road for us. So this really is a blip. It's like a very painful blip. And if any of you are home every day with your kids, it feels like an eternity. But it really is kind of short term for us. And so for the way that we're planning medium term, that for us is really like the rest of this year. So we hope and expect that in 12 to 18 months, there is a vaccine, and that, people are comfortable being out. And I think there will be a heightened awareness, obviously. We hear about epidemics around the world, but it never touches us at home. And so now that it has, I think that it really has created this hyper focus and awareness, sensitivity to health and sanitation. And those are things that we practice at the brewery all the time, but I think the general public has more of an awareness of it now. And so for the midterm, which would be 12 to 18 months for us, I think, until people again are comfortable and back to full occupancy, and you feel comfortable being in a crowded bar, which is what we all hope to get back to. We are planning what that looks like. So we've always been kind of focused on metrics and ratios for managing the business. And so what that's going to look like is if we can only be at 50% occupancy, that's what we have to plan for. So We are just doing model upon model, and it's a whole lot of math to get us through the next year to make sure that we can carry our spaces and keep our team employed and engaged, and just like Colin said, focusing on kind of the innovation, getting our team back to doing what's fun and not just what is necessary right now.
Definitely. I've got a couple minutes left. Matt, Other Half launched the All Together program, a huge collaboration to raise money for the hospitality industry. We get a handful of press releases every day with new breweries that are brewing it and partaking, which is really great. So how did this come together?
I think it was more just an effort to raise, awareness. It's, like Trillium and WeldWerks. I mean, we're built around community. We're built around hospitality. We're built around, on premise. And, I come from a restaurant background. My partners come from restaurant backgrounds. Like that's all I've ever done. And, I have tons of friends in the restaurant industry and hospitality in general. And just to see the devastation, it was just, the core of it was just to raise the awareness so that people don't forget, that there are millions and millions and millions of people out there that, that even if it's a small role, played a role in most of the fun and interesting things that you've done in your life, and revolving around, restaurants and bars and, travel, like everybody. And so, we just felt like it was the least we could do to just give everyone an easy way to either just raise awareness, possibly raise funds. I mean, the goal isn't to raise a bunch of, the goal is to raise money, obviously, but the goal is to keep the conversation at the forefront. And it seems that people do understand that, just in the way that they tip our drivers, and the people that are doing the exchanges for curbside pickup. Everybody understands that the ones that are working everyone's really lucky to still be working. They're incredibly brave to do it. So it was a easy way for us to have everyone in any community play a role in this, without having to put a majority of the back end work into making it. And then, breweries are the hubs of their communities. I mean, so what a better network to get out awareness than breweries. So it's been staggering, the amount of support it's gotten. We're at 661 breweries in 41 states and 43 countries. So there's people care, and there's a lot of people that aren't going to lose sight of the fact that there's a lot of hardship out there. I mean, big time. So
we've got about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to wrap it up here real quick. I guess in the next 2 minutes, but one of the terms that we keep hearing over and over is survival mode. And I want to ask you each if that's how you feel that you're in, or if you've passed that point already. And I'll start with Matt.
I mean, we always feel like we're in survival mode. It's just how much creativity we have to be able to dedicate to the future. But we still feel that way. I mean, we're still trying to iron out how to do business in this, daily. So until something levels off and becomes normal, I think that's just how we're all going to feel.
Colin, is that where you feel you're at right now?
Honestly, not. We're in great shape, and I humbly say that, looking over my shoulder and knowing that the other shoe is not dropped. And I think that's the important thing to do with all of this. We hear some kind of good news. We hear some kind of good news coming out of Colorado that you can get your hair cut in a couple of weeks. Thank God. You can do some of these things that we need to get back to do. But I absolutely agree with Esther that I think in the future you're going to see some proximity of limited occupancy. So that's going to get dialed down. So it's not business as usual by any means, but I think everything that played into us having to operate out of Cowtown, Greeley, Colorado, not a Cowtown anymore. Check it out. It doesn't stink. Swear to God. Come check it out. But I think everything that we had to do as a response to being located in a small town in a very populous and popular state for craft beers has paid off in spades in our response hub. So not survival mode, but we're very cognizant and we're very diligent, and we are looking over our shoulder at every step.
JC and Esther, how are you guys feeling?
Oh, we're survival mode for sure. We've got, I alluded to this before, but we have 6 leases and 2 mortgages. We occupy 9 spaces to do what we do right now, with the intention of consolidating down to eventually 5. But that was our plan for this year, and we've got 1 location open right now. So it is very intense, and we are very much looking forward to being able to get through this, and then move forward with the plans that we had put in place to transition everything in Canton to forever home, reduce the amount of square footage that we occupy there, and to get back to farming and agriculture, and kind of to, again, like, just be operating all of these spaces where we can welcome people in. So that's the goal. We'll get there again someday soon.
Well, I can't wait to get there. So I really want to thank you all for joining us today. This has been great. I hope we can do it again in the future, maybe in person instead of via Zoom. But also, I want to thank Jess for her help today. She really took the lead on this. And I want to thank all our viewers out there for tuning in. We're going to do this again next Thursday. We've got Gary Fish, the founder of Deschutes, lined up for next week. So we'll see you back here at 3 Eastern next Thursday. Cheers.